Welcome to the Sporting Crypto podcast, where we talk to leaders in the sports and Web3 space about their journeys in this crazy world. On episode 8, I am joined by Cooper Sherwin, who is the co-founder and head of communications at LinksDAO. Cooper, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Why don't you tell us a bit more about what you're focusing your energy on right now?
Sure. Right now, we are focused a lot on growing and expanding the Links community, bringing more golfers into the ecosystem to experience, what we're calling reimagining the golf and leisure club, right? More inclusive, exciting, and accessible golf experiences for, a sport that's traditionally been pretty gated.
And why don't you tell us a bit more about you personally in terms of Web3? Where did that professional and personal interest spark?
Sure. So personally, I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013.
Wow, no way.
Sold it for $100 profit and thought I was a genius, one of those things. And that had kind of been my experience with crypto through the Ethereum launch and up until the advent of NFTs. Personally, I've worked with a number of brands in social media and marketing, but really the Web3 connection between brands, audiences, communities, and ideas in kind of this new tokenized paradigm, starting in about 2021 is when I went full-time in Web3, building out communities for artists and brands, and eventually now Links.
Give us the one-liner. What is LinksDAO?
Links Golf Club, with LinksDAO as an integral part, is reinventing the modern golf club. So it's an inclusive community of golfers all over the world that have access to incredible golf experiences, great benefits from some of the best brands in the world of golf, and access to the golf course that we bought in Scotland's Bay Golf Course.
And so let's talk about that, right? So give me a chronological timeline from we're doing this thing to buying the golf club. So right from the very first message you sent whoever, probably Mike Dudas. Yep. Give us the timeline.
Sure. It's one of those stories of being on Twitter at the right moment. I've been following Mike in the space for a little while, and then it was on the heels of the Constitution DAO attempt to purchase one of the original copies of the U.S. Constitution, which famously failed, as well as Gary Vaynerchuk's Fly Fish Club, which is here in New York, the membership-based restaurant. So these ideas were being discussed, and then Mike tweeted, "We're going to go buy a top golf course, LinksDAO." I immediately replied and said, "Hey, I've been a golfer my whole life. I'd love to get involved with building out this community." And we launched a Discord. A few hours later, we had 9,000 people in there, all really excited about this idea of coming together and achieving this big picture golf course purchase. We launched our initial membership sale on January 1st of 2022. We sold out in 6 hours in our public sale, 9,000 NFT-based memberships. Shortly thereafter, we got together and started talking and realized no one on the core team had purchased a golf course before.
Listen, it's a niche thing.
Sure. Yeah, it's, and we were like, what do we do now, right? We have to generate these relationships and start talking to people. And, we made some news, which was great because we actually started getting a lot of inbound and talked to a lot of people in the golf industry. So I think we had this big picture idea from launch, buy a golf course, and then we started working on how do we deliver value to our members today. And within a couple of weeks, we partnered with Shipsticks, the golf club shipping company, 5 Iron Golf, which is an indoor simulator and kind of a bar and restaurant concept. And that got the ball rolling with just delivering more and more partnerships, creating relationships in the world of golf. We partnered with Callaway, and they're a strategic investor in Links. Famously, Topgolf is one of their great products, which is an awesome entry point for golfers of all kinds. And all the while making connections with folks in the golf industry who were very kind to us in making introductions to golf course architects, course owners, course networks, where we could give our members access to great networks of private courses while we sought the ideal first course to purchase. We sourced and spoke to, I think, over 100 courses in the US and none overseas until we saw the listing for Spey Bay in Scotland. And it just kind of became what if we did that? And explored, went over there. There was a pretty compelling price point versus US-based courses. And the Scottish golf culture is incredible. It's the home of golf. So we took that research and kind of the team's opinion on what this course could be, what the upside could be to the community. We had a vote as a DAO, and 88% of the votes came in favor of purchasing SpayBay. So we sent our CFO, C. Bruce, over there, Chris Bruce, to make the offer at the 11th hour, I think, literally. And he had never played that golf course, and he never actually hit a ball on a Scottish golf course when we put in the offer to buy the course. So we ended up winning the bid. Interestingly enough, part of that was because the seller had some competitive offers, but was really interested in the value that a community like Links could bring to the course, not just another real estate investor or course buyer over there.
What an amazing story. This is going to be weird, but I want to focus in on what was some of the negative vitriol reaction when you guys raised all that money. Was there a lot of, these guys are fucking crazy, this is never going to work, they're never going to buy a golf course, this is another DAO trying to do something in sports, or buy a sports team or buy a sports property, and it's never going to happen?
Sure. I think I have a little bit of rose-colored glasses on it from being internal as head of community at the time, speaking to people who were really passionate and excited about the idea. And to me, that far outweighs any of the negativity. But of course, we had a ton of questions and, really difficult questions around how do we structure this organization, right? What is a DAO, and who buys and purchases the golf course? There's regulatory uncertainty around the world of crypto generally, but also how DAOs operate. And I think we really struck the nail on the head with our framework of a symbiotic relationship between a C Corp and a DAO that advises and can vote on really important things. Externally, I'm absolutely certain there are some people who said, you'll never buy a golf course. And I hit them with the, remind me of this in 6 months tag on Twitter. And recently some people have been tagging those after the purchase of SpayBay, being like, look, told you so. I think, most of the negativity and doubt was washed out mostly by the strength of the team and early success in relationships with golf companies. I mean, Mike Dudas' reputation is stellar. Jim Daly, our CEO, is top notch. Adam Besnovic, who's running our golf operations, is awesome. Greg Hill on product. We developed a really great token gated and member platform to access these golf benefits. And I think any investigation by doubters were silenced on pretty early looks into under the hood of what we were building.
So amazing, and it's so funny to see. I mean, the thing is, right? Why wouldn't they have that negative reaction if you're from completely externally? You've just seen Constitution DAO fail. Fail strong because they raised $32 million, but not do the thing that they set out to do. Right. And I think that's been the key thing, right? A lot of DAOs have been we're going to buy the Denver Broncos. No, you're not. Come on. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And the key thing is actually executing, doing the thing that you set out to do, however lofty the goal, getting there or dying trying.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic, and a lot of communities that I've spoken to or worked with, they either focus too small in the day-to-day, or they have, they're going to send somebody to the moon, literally, right? I've seen NFT projects that have dropped. So one person who mints this is going to go to space. Crazy stuff. But I think, we've struck a balance between, day-to-day utility and member value and rallying a community around this big picture idea, right? And, SpayBay is our first course. We're not done, right? We're just getting started. We are actively committed to acquiring a course in the US and multiple courses down the road.
Using Web3 and crypto, why has that been such a USP for you folks, and why couldn't you have done this off-chain?
Sure. I think, be completely honest with you, we got tremendously lucky with timing, right? There was a peak of new users coming into and creating Ethereum wallet addresses right in January of 2022, right when we minted and launched, right? And I'd like to think we are partially responsible for the onboarding of a lot of people in, hey, I want to participate in this cool experiment and join with that. I think the revolutionary idea, especially as it relates to golf, of, if you go and look at joining a golf course in the New York area or the Philly area where I'm from, the wait lists are incredibly long. You have to pay tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars as an initiation fee, some of which you may never see again. And you are locked into just one club, one community. So I think tokenizing our memberships offering the ability to leave and there exists a secondary market for these memberships is really interesting. But ultimately, I think there was just a lot of excitement around this idea of participatory governance and the technology that enables the community experience that's really unlike anything else in golf or sport.
That's so concise and so good. I want to ask you a question about, I think I wrote about Links and I said, this is like community in the back, business in the front. How did you get to that structure and why has it been so successful for you?
I think we have some great business minds on the team, right? I think that somebody once called us the adults in the room of Web3. No offense to other projects. I've met a lot of great people, especially through you, who are working on really, really cool and important things. But we have, I think been dedicated as what we like to call golf sickos. Like everyone on the team is really, really obsessed with golf and what the experience of a golfer is like, in the modern world. And we see the problems that we really want to improve. So in terms of that business model, we've just been obsessed. And Nick Walker on partnerships has done a great job making deals and delivering professional, engaging and exciting opportunities for members to participate. But really I think the secret sauce is that community side where our members are coming into the chats and, we can announce a new partnership and people are like, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to go use that. But we get by far the most engagement when it comes to voting on things together, like making decisions about course corrections, the direction we're going, the causes we want to support through charity, the logos we want to select for the organization. And I'm really proud to say that our DAO participation, the number of votes, number of people voting, has remained relatively flat since January of 2022, which is, as you know, Web3 has kind of bounced around in terms of popularity and participation over that time. But I think that's the thing that keeps people coming back and really excited.
I want to ask you a bit more about some of the challenges you faced. Operationally as a DAO, what are the things you thought weren't going to be that difficult that were really hard?
Sure. There's a concept called the loud angries, where like if you propose an idea to a group of people, it may be very popular, but the loudest, angriest 10% are going to be, the majority of your attention, right? And I think that, working with a community of people, I think that the Links community has probably the least proportion of that cohort in them. But getting a diverse group of people from all over the country, all over the world together, and having conversations about, what can we do, what should we do, has been, tricky. And then there's another side of it, which is, explaining what your DAO membership really means. Some people buy a token on OpenSea without talking to anyone, without, doing any research, and they come in and they're like, I own a golf course. And we're like, well, that's not exactly how it works. You have a say, right? You have an interest and you get all of these benefits and everything else that goes along with it. But I'm really grateful to, our community members, our community team who have rallied around and been great leaders and doers in executing this vision.
And then the vision, right? Executionally, were there any like really near misses, almost buying a golf course? And then after answering that, why don't you talk us through like the executional part of like actually buying Spade Bay? Because I'm sure your CFO was great, is great, but I'm sure he didn't just rock up and was like, here's the check.
Sure. So there have been absolute near misses. We have, like I said, done due diligence in a really deep way with 10 plus courses in the US. And it's a complex real estate transaction, right? I mean, anyone who's bought a house knows that there's a ton of details that go into closing, brokers, and inspections and all the like. So there's personalities involved, and these are complex transactions. So we've gotten close, and we've been looking particularly hard at the southeastern United States, Georgia, the Carolinas, and been in deep conversations with a couple of course owners down there. And for one reason or another, structuring these deals, people love their golf too. Imagine if you owned a golf course and you're like, well, I'd love to sell it to you, but I kind of want to stay involved in some way, right? Or, I have these caveats to how I'd like this deal to be structured, where ultimately, we just haven't been able to find, meeting of the minds. Those have been big disappointments, especially, earlier in the year or last year when we were really excited about getting close on some of these deals. And then it's like, it fell through. And it's like, okay, when course is something the community was asking a lot. And yeah, I mean, those have been tough misses, but I think, finding a great opportunity like SPAY, especially at the price point, was something that we all really rallied around. And like, let's go do this. And that moment when it became very, very possible and very real, and the level of community involvement in that decision making, I think set it off. As for the process around SPAY specifically, we saw there was an MSN article posted about one of the, there's only 247 true Scottish links courses in the world. And this is one of them, and it went up for sale. And we saw this MSN article. Shortly thereafter, our golf fanatics in the server were, hey, I saw this, and we were like, we're on it, right? We're checking this out. We did some diligence initially. We started calling some partners that we have in the UK and said, hey, have you heard of this place? What's it like? Some trusted folks that we knew through our course networks that our members get access to, they went over and said, this is kind of cool. Like this could be really special. 13 of the 18 holes are right along the sea on the Moray Firth. And yeah, so we started looking at more pictures and sharing it. And then, eventually just said, okay, there's a deadline to make this bid. And in order to do that, we need to have the community, make a decision. So Chris and the rest of the team put together a overview document. Here's how much the asking price is. Here's the location, the potential, and that's what I think was really interesting was like, what the upside could be long-term with a course like this. Obviously, it's not one that you or I had heard of before this process. So, the question is, what is it? Yeah, right. Like how good can this be? And the history of the course is really, really incredible. So we put together all of this documentation, shared it with the community. And, it was one of those weekends, the initial response was like, Scotland? Like, really? Are you sure? And we had really lively debate and discussion in the community throughout the weekend about, will this derail our US course acquisition process? Like how can we prioritize all of this? Is it worth it for the community to do it? But ultimately we came around and said, this is a great option. One of the original Scottish Links courses doesn't come up on the market very often, especially not one like this. And we saw we as a community agreed on the potential that the spot had. So the vote went through after a lot of discussion. 88% voted yes. And then I believe we had 36 hours after the close of the vote. And it became pretty obvious immediately that it was going to pass without, something crazy. I think we have most of our votes in the community go through, I think 85 is the lowest we've had. So, it was, we knew pretty quickly that was going to happen. So I think Chris booked some flights, like 12 hours into the vote and got over there. We worked with UK attorneys to, figure all that out, met with the existing owner and said, hey, here's our offer. The time between making the offer and closing the deal far long. It felt like an eternity versus that decision-making process. So obviously there's due diligence. It's on the sea. What's erosion look like? How does the clubhouse operate? What's the existence of the current members of SPAY, right? The SPAY Bay has an existing membership of 140 folks. And, it's something we had debated about buying a private club in the US is like, how do we, do they have to buy NFTs?
I was going to say, you got like another 140 onboarded.
Right, exactly. So yeah, we bring them into the community. So
you actually get them to buy NFTs?
No.
Okay.
So, these are questions right in the community. It's like, how does this work? And we're like, we've never done it before. I guess we'll find out. But the deal closed, which was a tremendously celebratory day. Jim flew over, got the keys, sealed the deal. And I think, the property is incredible. I got to go over there this past summer and experience it myself. And, the property is really great. We've contracted with Clayton DeVries and Pont, who's a legendary golf course architecture firm. Mike DeVries was on site during our welcome event. Who he said, I don't think there's many hidden gems left in golf. This may be the last one, which is high praise from someone like him. Renovations are starting this fall, but I think the thing that shocked me the most and that I was most pleasantly surprised with was that existing membership, right? The local members of Spey Bay have been so great to interact with. They were so welcoming during our welcome event. A little nervousness at first. What are these Americans going to come in and do? But within an hour, I think we really had a shared bond around not only the property, but the game of golf, which we all love.
What was your first reaction when you got on the ground and saw it?
It was about 1:30 a.m. when I pulled up to the Airbnb, and I was like, is that... So I was very tired. I landed, played 18 holes somewhere else, and then we got to the Airbnb. But that morning when I woke up and looked out the window of our Airbnb and saw the clubhouse in the first hole, I mean, it was just goosebumps. Just immediately like, wow, we did this. We actually did the thing that for the past, year and a half, 2 years we'd been pushing for and working towards. And I think it was part shock of being overwhelmed with that idea, but also excitement that this model works, right? And that, we can actually replicate this, not just for Links, not just for golf, but, bringing decentralized online communities, rallying around ideas and working together to achieve common goals, which, many can doubt and say are insurmountable, but like it can be done.
Talking of the community, can you explain to the audience who might be from like a sports background, marketing background, that might not be as in the weeds on the Web3 front, like operationally, how does it work from someone having an NFT to being in a community, a Discord, like seeing, having a lot of the funds, seeing it on chain, all that kind of thing, to voting, and then what kind of things can your community vote on?
Sure. So starting very broadly, if you're in sports or marketing, these are your fans, right? These are your people who are committed to your cause. And what would an MLB game be without any fans? I guess we found out in 2020. But I think that the key success metric for Web3 communities, but also kind of into this online social media paradigm, is community involvement, feedback. People want to have a voice and a say, right? Web3 is this read, write, own concept, the evolution of kind of the internet from social media, and to dive into all of that. But I believe that that community involvement, and not just paying lip service to the idea of getting market surveys or feedback from folks who are your fans, but actually true engagement and involvement from a group of people in your decision-making process, and ultimately being the source of a lot of the ideas that decisions are made upon, is a tremendously powerful tool. We've seen not only organic Web3 or crypto ideas rally around this and achieve really cool things, but lots of larger brands and established companies are seeing the power of building a Discord server, inviting people in to have conversations, segmenting those users based on their level of fandom or participation, or participation in attendance of events, right? You can do a lot to connect people based around their ideas, their level of participation, and then ultimately you can bring them together, have them source ideas, and contribute to a shared vision, whether that be Batman buying a golf course, or the potential is limitless on should we trade this player, right? We've some pro sports teams have been debating these questions of governance and decision making at the top level. I mean, there's even one where the community decides which play to run, right? Fan controlled football. So I think that we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg for the potential for community involvement in these kind of broader missions. But I do believe that relinquishing a little bit of that high level control that we've come to love in business to the broader voice, and allowing them to guide, participate, and be active in a lot of those decisions pays awesome dividends.
And then just to go a little bit more narrow into some of the types of decisions that your community have made, can you give us some examples?
Sure. I believe the first vote we had was threefold. It was, should we partner with brands to provide utilities to the community? a donation to a charitable cause. I believe it was Steph and Aisha Curry's foundation. And from there, we've had votes and decisions about merch and apparel, right? Like what type of branding, what type of clothing we should work with. We've had votes about which golf course to buy, and I am drawing a blank right now, but we've done 18 separate DAO governance votes, approximately one per month as throughout the whole process.
Which isn't actually that many, right? But I think keeping it at like the right type of question to ask, rather than like, does the S in links have to curve, which 99.9% of your community won't care about.
Yeah. And then additionally, one of the things that we've put a lot of focus on is having a robust contributor system. So, you or anyone else who's a Links member can come in and say, hey, I have this marketing background. I have this golf background. I have, graphic design talents, and say, I'd like to work on this project or assist in the mission in this way. And we've had a system to pay out DAO contributors over time with this, and it's been really, really successful. I think the vast majority of our existing full-time team came through the DAO contributor process. So, allowing people to, add their ideas, their talents, their skills, and rewarding them for that, not just, having them donate it to the cause, has been, really, really great. And it's been something that's pushed our mission forward.
In sports, broadly, DAOs haven't really worked that well. What is your take on how few we've seen do real stuff, right? So when people ask me, I think about kind of like Links, Kraus House, Karate Combat, and there's some new ones now that are kind of forthcoming, and we'll see how they end up. I think Rugby DAO, Sail GP with the DAO team, both kind of coming up in the last 3 to 4 months. Why do you think there hasn't been more success stories?
Well, first off, I believe that there are, opportunities that are kind of ripe for disruption or community participation and entering some of these markets. I think we can tie this back to Constitution DAO, and there were only 8 copies of that available for purchase, right? And so if you miss one, they don't come up for sale very often. You may never have that chance again. The same thing comes for, pro sports teams, right? There's a limited number of them, and their ownership usually doesn't necessarily want to part ways with them. So finding the right mission, market, and aligned fan base is a really, really difficult task. To, say we want to, achieve this goal, but there's a path of least resistance, and then there's a path of a lot of resistance, right? And it takes a significant amount of legwork, effort, talks, time, right, to get through some of those doors and into some of those conversations. And I think that that's not something that is compatible with a lot of the, Web3, NFT, crypto attention span, right? Some people, deploy their capital to buy NFTs or support some of these missions. And, at a certain point, if things aren't moving fast enough, they're going to want out, right? They're on to the next thing. They might need that liquidity for something else. So in that way, the community side and the market side is difficult to manage, especially when people are looking at a project as speculation rather than participation, which is something that's, I think, endemic to the space.
I think really well said. And I think the next kind of iteration of this world is going to be, as you just put it, more participation than speculation. We're going to talk a lot more about the future of links and where the challenges might lie, and more broadly in the sports Web3 market. Before we do that, I need to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by the HBAR Foundation, and they are the ecosystem accelerator of Hedera, the most used sustainable enterprise-grade DLT for the decentralized economy. Together with industry-leading use cases and globally renowned partners, the foundation is actively scaling Web3 consumer engagement across the metaverse, gaming, DeFi, regenerative finance, and beyond. So let's talk a bit more about the future, and what does the end goal look like for LinksDAO?
If I said global domination, that would probably not be the best response. So I think, we want to be the preeminent golf brand in the world, right? I think there are lots of great golf brands out there today. Callaway, Topgolf come to mind as awesome things. Nike, did great things with Tiger Woods back in the day. But connecting the world of golf, the idea of belonging, finding your place in the game, connecting with other golfers globally, locally, Links becoming the brand that does that for the world of golf and for each individual golfer, I think is the end game. So, in the short term, it's the next 100,000, 250,000 golfers coming into the ecosystem, not necessarily as NFT holders or DAO members, but as, we've launched fiat options to purchase memberships in Links that give you access to the club. So you can join the club with a credit card and access a lot of the benefits and participate in the community. And that drives our mission forward. So I think to be one of the preeminent global golf brands, we've stated that we want to have 10 golf courses by 2030, which is an ambitious goal, but we're pushing towards that, growing our membership significantly, and ultimately revolutionizing the stuffy existing golf paradigm and replacing it with one that any golfer can access a top flight golf experience on a whim through Links.
Amazing. 2030 is a long way to think, and I don't think many Web3 native brands think that far. I'm going to ask an interesting question here. Do you think you can reconcile a business that has to go out and achieve these big, lofty ambitions with a Web3 native community?
Yes, I think that our Web3 native community has been the key to our success. They've been so supportive and helped push the mission forward, contributed to all of our operations since inception. Obviously, there is a concept that was really, really hot in 2021 of approximately 10,000 tokens, right? And that's what you do. That's not necessarily compatible with global scale membership, right? Which is why that has evolved into the core of our community, but we have expanded our membership options to welcome in golfers. To be inclusive and accessible, we have this permissionless token, and then we realized that 90% of golfers perhaps don't have an interest in creating a crypto wallet and buying an NFT. So we became, in a way, inaccessible because our only membership options were NFTs. So we've expanded that. And ultimately, I think that our foundation Web3 helps drive us forward. We're in love with the technology, in love with what it can do for golf and membership. But no, I don't think that being Web3 is a blocker necessarily for our end goals.
And how important has it been for you to build a strong brand in golf and not just Web3?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've had to rebrand ourselves and kind of evolve into a golf company, not an NFT project, right? I think that there's a lot of chatter on Twitter. What's the best NFT project? What's the best, PFP project? We're a golf company, right? We started out with, NFTs, and I'm so glad that we did, because it's gotten us to this point. But it's been really important, especially in light of, some of the negative news cycles we've seen in crypto throughout the bear market, that, when we approach partners who have been involved in golf for 100 years plus, in some cases, that, we're golf people, and we are doing cool things for the world of golf. The technology side, can take any form. Does anyone care if you use AWS on the back end of your website? No, it's the technology that's underlying and enabling, but ultimately, our mission is golf centric.
And then the mission being so lofty, you folks having to become a sustainable business, how do you marry that up with some of your Web3 native community wanting to see upsides? You mentioned participation, not speculation, but they obviously don't own the golf course, but how do you marry that with them, as I said, seeing some of that upside in your growth?
Sure. So we have, from the beginning told our members, you only really need one Links golf membership, right? And some people listen to that, some people don't. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that we offered our members opportunities to invest in our seed round, where we, if you're an accredited investor and a Links member, you had the opportunity to invest in the corporation to, be a part owner of that golf course, see the upside, in the long term. So we have provided those opportunities outside of our membership tokens to, invest, you could say, in the future of Links. our members who are, token holders, they get the best access forever, lifetime access to everything the Links ecosystem has to offer. And additionally, we're just getting started. So as we continue to build, add more partnerships, buy more golf courses, the upside that we encourage folks to see is improvements in their golf game, golf experiences, and golf life, right? The participation in the ecosystem and helping to drive it forward, I think, satisfies that need. And I think that a lot of our community members recognize that as the primary benefit of being a Links member, not necessarily being able to 10x their membership tokens.
Another weird question from me. If you were starting Links over again, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's a fun question. So I think that we probably would have done something more along the lines of an unlimited, non-quantitized mint. I think that wasn't at all the paradigm or in the thought process, the zeitgeist, I guess you could say, of that time.
Is that to make it inclusive? Is that to raise bigger capital so you can get to your goal quicker, or a mix of all of that?
I won't guess as to how much we could have raised if we had sold, unlimited tokens at our mint price. But I think that, people were looking for opportunities to get in early on scarcity, and artificial scarcity was not necessarily something that was necessary for the success of this project. Obviously, having 10,000 members or 50,000 members at one specific golf course poses some logistical challenges with getting tee times and everything. So in that light, I think there needs to be a balance there. We launched with a 2-tier membership, global and leisure. I think that, in a way that was interesting and added, opportunities for folks to pick the right, package that worked for them. But in a way, we've tied ourselves to, maintaining, because globals get 4 votes per membership and leisures get 1 vote per membership. And so we've kind of been having to, adjust levers every once in a while to keep those proportions aligned with how much value some people get versus others, versus, a more democratized option. I really think that we did, maybe naming the global and leisure something that makes sense. Gold and platinum, I think, are in a set. What is gold and leisure are not correlated in any way. It's one of the things that when you don't call a branding agency and you launch in 2 weeks that you just don't think about. So the ability to add to, enhance, differentiate those packages and memberships is something that we didn't consider at the launch, but it's something that we've put a lot of thought into with our new membership options.
And what are some of the things that you ended up doing throughout this process that you thought were really going to be easy, but actually turned out to be incredibly difficult? You can't say buying a golf course, that doesn't count.
Sure. I was blissfully not super tight on that process anyway, so I won't say that part was the hardest for me. I would say, the most challenging part has been my golf game, getting better at golf to meet the expectations of our members. That's been one thing that I've been focusing on a bit. But I think, the thing that's been exciting, challenging is that all of our community members, right, when they need a question answered, I'm usually the one that gets the direct message or the ping or anything else. So my fiance doesn't love it. But
especially with a global audience, right?
Exactly. So, someone, a member in Australia sends me a message and, my phone goes off. It's just one of those things that I've had to learn to adapt to and find work-life balance. And I'm really grateful that, I've been a member of a few communities and worked with more. The Links community are so great, so pleasurable to work with. But being able to, balance everything in a global, always online kind of concept has been a challenge. I think it's a superpower, but also something that requires a lot of effort, and shout out to everybody on the team who's dealt with that.
Let's talk about things outside of Links a little bit again. In sport more broadly, what are you excited by when it comes to Web3?
In sport more broadly in Web3, I think that we're seeing a lot of really thoughtful, talented, and smart people start to implement and execute their ideas in these really high level sports organizations, MLB, NBA, come to mind as great examples. The world of football and soccer, I think, as I'd call it, are also pushing the boundaries there. And I think that, we're in a period of less frothy speculation, but that has had a propensity to change in the past. I think that we're going to see a lot of these ideas that came out of the 2021 bull run, people inspired to build really cool things. As those projects and products launch, we're going to see some incredible changes to the way that fans and sport come together and are connected through this technology.
What would be some of your advice to people working at those sports organizations as someone who's like in the weeds, been there, done that, had the community, launched the tokens, done the thing they set out to do? What would be your advice to them?
I think my best piece of advice for someone working to launch or expand a crypto sports project would be that it's impossible to overinvest in community. The experience, human touch points and involvement that your fans, your audience get to participate with and engage with is by far the most important aspect of the entire process. If you can make those touch points, that engagement feel exciting and important, and you show that you value those community members, they're going to be a lot less interested in the speculation and more interested in participation and contribution. So you'll have more longevity with your community. You'll have more involvement, more passion, more virality. They're more likely to spread and tell their friends if you can, really support and foster your community in that way.
And then more broadly outside of sport as well, where do you see yourself getting excited? Or are you just too in the weeds, golf, sport, nothing else matters?
Sure. I think that there's been, some paradigm shifts happening in sport more broadly. The way that large leagues are interacting and kind of evolving in this way. But I think that we are going to see AI come in and play a role in our daily lives in a way that, a lot of people have speculated about, and we're not prepared for how that's going to evolve.
And now semiconductors as well, right?
Semiconductor, maybe.
Aliens.
Yeah, aliens. We've got aliens, we've got AI, we've got semiconductors. The world is changing incredibly fast.
But on the sports side, just to pick your brains there, right? When you say the sports landscape is changing a lot, do you mean some of the direct-to-consumer content? We're seeing like regional sports networks go under. We're seeing, something like fan-controlled football not coming back for season 3 because they can't maintain it from a capital perspective. Where do you see the landscape shifting the most? Where you see some opportunities for sports brands to like develop?
Sure. I think the empowerment of the average creator, right? I'm a millennial myself, but I see, some of the incredible talent and tools that, Gen Z and the future generations are using, just being so tech native with everything that they do. The proliferation of those hot takes, concepts, ideas, and how not just fragmented in all of those micro communities that can be, but also the mutual ties that bind that whole ecosystem together. I think that, the age of Madden is over, where there's only one, authoritative voice in the world of football or something else. We're going to have a cacophony of voices and people contributing to the success of their favorite teams in so many different ways.
I think Flex Chapman from Krause House episode 4 said the days of like ESPN being your sole point of contact with a team is over, because everyone's going to become their own ESPN, whether it's a team or a creator.
Yeah, and I think that that's almost sad in a way, because that was the spot where everyone saw the same ESPN top 10, the same highlights the night, and then the next day we related to that in person. And I think that having those shared experiences is something that as a society we kind of need to have. But I think that there's still hope in the replacement of that with communities, right? Where it's not necessarily the centralized media production system, but the consumption and discussion about these topics, these viral moments, these, top plays occurs in one place where people are not just consuming the media, but also discussing and contributing to it.
It's funny you say that because like we've also seen Twitter over the last like 6 months, 12 months change a lot. Most would say for the worse. I'd probably be in that camp. We've seen, but not just Twitter, right? We've seen Instagram roll out verifications. We've had over the last like decade privacy concerns when it comes to Facebook. LinkedIn is amazing and I love using it to grow Sport and Crypto and put content out. But like the feature set and tool set for creators is like massively frustrating to some extent. YouTube can deplatform you whenever you want, whenever they want. And you know, that's up to debate for whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what type of content it is. But broadly, I think this idea of like having an on-chain network of people that are a fan of something, and that is like permissionless, but it's also transparent and it doesn't depend on anything else, right? And you can say, oh, you know, blockchain could die, but there are certain ways around that. You know, if Ethereum died tomorrow, then we kind of pack up shop anyway. But like, if you have an on-chain network of people, you actually aren't as reliant on those other things like a Twitter or a LinkedIn or a YouTube or an Instagram that might change on a dime. It might change the algorithm, but like the fact that you have like a 1 of 1 or 1 of 200 or 1 of 1,000 links membership, that's not going to change unless I send it to someone else or lose that wallet or whatever it may be. I think that's super powerful, and I think that mindset shift is going to come soon where someone says, you know what, Twitter's changed their algorithm like 10 times in the last like 4 months. Instead of us having to be super agile and nimble, why don't we just do our own thing?
Yeah, I think, you know, we saw when Twitter rebranded to X, the owner of the @X account, right? We don't know what, I think he may have gotten the hat or something like that in exchange for them taking that handle. I think that, you know, on-chain ownership and identity is really important. I think that the ability to find those content sources and communities across whatever platform you choose or that works best for you is really, really important. And, you know, I think that there's obviously a ton of innovation and really intelligent people working on this problem, but having that decentralized social network or social graph, I think not just one network, but that you can take your identity, your wallet, you know, your digital assets with you from place to place, not just when it comes to social and interactions on a network state, but from game to game, from sport to sport, I think is really going to be interesting and exciting. I think we're just waiting for somebody to do it right.
I'm going to ask you one final question before we wrap up. What does the roadmap look like for Links over the next year or so?
Sure. You know, we've seen an incredible growth of new members from the world of golf, not just through our crypto and NFT products, but from our new memberships, and pushing that paradigm forward to bring in more golf courses into the Links network, not even necessarily ones that we buy outright or operate, but, you know, golf course general managers, ownership committees who are interested in, you know, welcoming this new class of golfers, right? Or perhaps the old class that's adapted to this new way of doing things. I think, you know, is going to have a large effect, but I'm mostly excited about how we can just continue providing awesome experiences like with our upcoming events to golfers all around the country.
Amazing.
And the world.
And the world, don't forget. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing at Links?
Sure. So I'm personally at Coop NFT on Twitter. Links.golf is our website. We got the .golf one. And you can find us on Instagram at LinksGolfOfficial and on Twitter at LinksDAO. That's LinksDAO.
Fantastic. We'll have all that in the description and the notes below for you listening or watching on YouTube. Thank you so much for doing. You can find me at Pet Barisha on Twitter, PetBerisha, and on LinkedIn. You can find Sport and Crypto on LinkedIn, but also recently on Twitter at _Sport and Crypto. Please do subscribe to the newsletter that goes out every Monday on sportandcrypto.substack.com. You can also find us at our website, sportandcrypto.com, again, recently acquired, which is really fun. Before we leave you, just remember that none of what we have said on today's show is business or financial advice, and this content is for informational purpose only. Web3 is underpinned by crypto, and crypto is volatile, meaning you can lose money if you are buying these assets personally or as a business. Where we are recording right now in the US, the majority of crypto asset companies are unregulated. Thank you so much once more for consuming this content. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify or on YouTube, and leave us a comment and some feedback. We'll have more Small and Crypto podcasts for you soon.